Power is not seized in a moment, it is accumulated in silence. The wise understand that time is not an enemy, it is an accomplice. They do not rush toward visibility, they wait until visibility becomes unavoidable. For the impatient, every second feels like exile. For the strategist, every delay is a weapon. The fool burns through his chances in haste, while the cunning man lets the world exhaust itself. Time bends to those who understand that waiting is not weakness, it is camouflage. The world praises movement, noise, visibility, the spectacle of doing. But the one who rules does not move to be seen, he moves to be inevitable. To manipulate time is to make others dance to rhythms they cannot hear. Every empire was born from patience misunderstood as absence. Every downfall began when a ruler mistook applause for control. To vanish is not to disappear. It is to rearrange perception until presence becomes myth. There are moments when the greatest act of power is not to act. To delay is to observe. To retreat is to calculate. The wise ruler lets others reveal their ambitions while he conceals his intentions. He allows chaos to ripen, for chaos exposes the desperate. He watches loyalties fracture, alliances wither, and only when the fog clears does he strike. Timing is not the measurement of minutes, but the orchestration of illusions. You cannot control men without first controlling time, their sense of urgency, their hunger for now. The leader who dictates the tempo dictates perception. He creates scarcity, and men rush toward him. He withdraws, and their fear of loss deepens their obedience. Presence intoxicates, absence enslaves. Learn this rhythm, and you no longer chase opportunity, you summon it. To vanish at the right moment is not cowardice, it is conservation of influence. When the world grows loud with opinion, the ruler grows quiet with intent. He knows that attention is the currency of fools. He refuses to pay with his presence what he can buy with silence. The wise disappear into observation, not escape. Their retreat is not retreat, it is rehearsal. There is a kind of disappearance that does not remove you from the field, but from the target. When others believe they can predict you, you are already dying. Predictability is the first stage of defeat. To be known too well is to be disarmed. Therefore, the wise vanish into multiplicity, they become unreadable. They appear in fragments, never whole, until their shadow becomes more powerful than their body. The art of vanishing is the art of controlling your narrative without speaking. To be misunderstood deliberately is a form of armor. To be silent while others interpret your silence is to govern their imagination. And imagination is the true throne of power. Men will destroy themselves for what they think you are. The wise feed that illusion sparingly. They let mystery ferment until belief becomes servitude. Time obeys no man, yet it kneels to rhythm. The wise ruler learns to conduct life as if it were a war fought in the shadows of perception. He creates waiting as others create armies. He uses absence to sharpen hunger, presence to grant relief, and disappearance to provoke devotion. The people will follow him not because they know him, but because they fear losing him. What is unseen becomes sacred. What is always seen becomes disposable. Every ruler faces this truth. Power decays under light. Fame is a slow poison disguised as applause. The more you are known, the less you control. The more you explain, the weaker your position becomes. Clarity is a gift for the powerless. Ambiguity is the fortress of the strong. To vanish is to restore the mystery that commands obedience. Consider the river. It carves mountains by retreating, not attacking. Its patience is its violence. The mountain mocks its softness until centuries later the mountain no longer exists. So too does the wise ruler erode opposition not through confrontation, but through inevitability. He does not fight, he waits. He lets the current of time wear down every certainty until only his vision remains. Every visible war hides an invisible clock. Every negotiation, every betrayal, every promise all turn on timing. The impatient reveal themselves first, and in doing so, lose the game before it begins. The wise create stillness. They know that time exposes the liar, the opportunist, the weak. They have no need to accuse. They let decay do the talking. To vanish is to reclaim control over destiny. The crowd screams for attention, for validation, for relevance. The ruler learns to starve his ego until only vision remains. He does not crave to be understood. He craves to be inevitable. Every silence he creates becomes a prophecy. Every absence he engineers becomes a throne waiting to be filled by him, and only him. Power, in its purest form, is invisible. It does not shout. It does not explain. It does not demand belief. It simply shapes consequence. Those who truly command the world often seem forgotten, irrelevant, even dead until the moment their design unfolds. To manipulate time is to become its author, and authors do not rush to reveal their ending. You do not conquer time by moving faster. You conquer it by moving with meaning. Every pause, every delay, every withdrawal, when used, deliberately becomes an instrument of dominion. The fool sees stillness as stagnation. The wise see it as construction, a blueprint drawn in the dark. Every empire that survives does so because someone knew when to disappear. There are moments when withdrawal is not loss but purification. The wise vanish to separate themselves from the noise that blinds the multitude. They retreat not to escape, but to see, to study the battlefield from above. And when they return as storms do without warning, reshaping the landscape. No one remembers when the clouds gathered, only when the lightning struck. Every strategy depends on what others cannot perceive. Visibility is vulnerability. Those who must constantly announce their presence confess their insecurity. Those who are truly secure move like ghosts through the machinery of power. They bend outcomes without being named in the room. They govern through whispers that move faster than words. The art of vanishing is the art of preservation. It is the recognition that power must sometimes hide to remain alive. When power becomes spectacle, it becomes prey. The ruler who understands this becomes untouchable. His strength lies not in what he shows, but in what he withholds. Every hidden thought is a seed of control waiting for the right season. To manipulate time is to manipulate rhythm, to make others feel late, unprepared, desperate. The ruler always appears precisely when needed, never before, never after. His timing becomes divine in the eyes of men who cannot see his preparation. He lets them mistake precision for fate, and once they believe he is favored by time, their loyalty ceases to be rational. It becomes worship disguised as trust. The wise ruler never fears obscurity. He uses it, for obscurity is the womb of reinvention. Every disappearance allows rebirth under new circumstances. He changes faces as seasons change, but his essence, his calculation, remains constant. He lets the world forget, so he can return as a surprise it was never prepared to face. The invisible man becomes eternal because he never allows time to imprison his image. In every era, those who lasted longest were not the loudest, but the least predictable. They understood that to endure is to outlast memory itself. The wise ruler becomes a shadow that outlives his body. His enemies cannot destroy what they cannot locate. His allies cannot betray what they cannot define. He becomes idea, not presence, and ideas are immune to death. To vanish is to declare mastery over perception. It is to know that every crowd will eventually devour its idols. So the wise refuse to stand where applause can reach them. They watch from the margins, pulling strings the audience never sees. The actors fight for recognition. The director writes their fate. Those who understand this never need to be seen to be obeyed. Power is a slow art. It does not reward haste. It rewards endurance. The impatient burn bright and vanish. The disciplined vanish and burn quietly through centuries. Every great transformation begins with invisibility, a seed under soil, unseen, untouched, yet inevitable. That is the true art of rule, to vanish long enough to become fate itself. Time will test every name, every regime, every illusion. But those who learn to disappear between the seconds, who learn to act only when the moment has matured, they become untouchable. The wise do not chase eternity, they design it. And in doing so, they make time their servant, their weapon, and their witness. That is the secret of all enduring power, to vanish, not to escape, but to prepare, to disappear, not in fear, but in precision. To stand unseen until the world bends toward the silence that has already chosen its hour. Because the wise do not live in time, they live ahead of it. To master disappearance is to master the human pulse itself. For time is not merely measured in hours, but in perception, and perception can be bent. The wise ruler learns to slow the heartbeat of nations, to stretch anticipation until men confuse patience with prophecy. He stands at the edge of action, never revealing whether he intends to strike or spare. In that uncertainty, his power multiplies. When people do not know what comes next, they submit to the one who does. Silence becomes command, delay becomes decree. The greatest strategist knows that fear is not born from violence, but from suspense. Power feeds on uncertainty, like fire feeds on air. Once the outcome is clear, control vanishes. That is why the wise ruler never allows certainty to settle. He lets men live between faith and doubt, hope and fear, trust and suspicion. He does not need to force obedience. He merely ensures they cannot predict him. What they cannot predict, they cannot resist. Invisibility is not the absence of power, it is its perfection. When the wise vanish, the world fills in their silence with reverence, suspicion, or fear, all forms of obedience in disguise. To manipulate time is also to manipulate decay. Every movement, every empire, every ideology carries within it the seed of its own ending. The ruler who survives beyond that cycle is the one who senses decline before it announces itself. He withdraws before the rot becomes visible. He dissolves his image before familiarity breeds contempt. Then, like the serpent shedding its skin, he returns renewed, yet unchanged at the core. He survives because he understands that endurance is not continuity, it is reincarnation. Those who remain visible too long become prisoners of their own image. The people who once worshipped their light will demand more of it, until the flame consumes itself. The ruler who stays unseen escapes that fate. He refuses to become a symbol others can define. Symbols are worshipped only to be sacrificed. The wise prefers to remain myth ever spoken of, rarely seen, never understood. For what men cannot understand, they cannot destroy. Time itself can be bent into obedience by those who refuse to move according to its pace. Every revolution, every uprising, every fall of kings is not born in chaos, but in rhythm. When the pulse of the people quickens beyond control, the ruler slows his own. He walks calmly through hysteria, letting panic destroy those who cannot master it. Power is not speed, it is the ability to remain unmoved while all others tremble. To appear timeless in a world of frenzy is to appear divine. The art of vanishing is therefore the art of divine distance, to stand apart while still within reach. The wise ruler allows his presence to be felt, but not verified. He allows his decisions to echo through intermediaries, his influence to ripple through others' voices. In this way, he multiplies himself through invisibility. 1,000 hands move at his command, yet none can trace their source. That is not secrecy, that is sovereignty. To the ordinary man, the passage of time is a current that carries him. To the ruler, it is a tide he commands. He decides when to appear as savior and when to fade into shadow. He allows the people to think they have summoned him, when in truth, he has summoned them. His timing feels miraculous, because it is unseen preparation that appears as destiny. To control the perception of when is to control the meaning of why. When the wise vanish, the fools rush in to fill the void. They mistake his silence for surrender and expose themselves in arrogance. Their noise becomes the drumbeat of their downfall. For in the theater of politics, those who shout first are always the easiest to target. The invisible ruler does not compete for the stage. He writes the script from backstage. He knows that appearances are weapons, and that the greatest victories are achieved when no one remembers who pulled the trigger. To vanish well, one must also understand the theater of loyalty. Loyalty is rarely love. It is a form of calculation. Men are loyal to what appears enduring, inevitable, safe. The visible ruler invites betrayal because his weaknesses are counted. The Invisible One creates loyalty through uncertainty. His followers cling to him because they cannot imagine life without him. They cannot replace what they cannot define. Invisibility thus becomes a kind of immortality within the minds of others. Control is not domination, it is orchestration. The wise manipulate not people directly, but the conditions under which people choose. They do not command loyalty, they cultivate dependency. They do not silence opposition, they let it speak itself into irrelevance. Such mastery requires stillness, restraint, and timing the virtues of vanishing. For every visible act of power requires 1,000 unseen calculations. The crowd sees the move, never the preparation. That is how legends are born, from precision mistaken for providence. Every empire eventually forgets its architects, but the architects who knew when to disappear were the ones whose blueprints shaped centuries. The wise ruler seeks not recognition, but permanence. He does not need statues, he designs systems. He does not need followers, he builds instincts in men that serve him long after he is gone. To vanish at the height of control is to ensure that control never ends. Presence ends, design endure. There is a law within the unseen world. What is watched too closely withers. The same sunlight that nourishes also burns. The ruler, therefore, must regulate his exposure. He lets the people see him only through filtered light glimpses, moments, appearances, too brief to be fully understood. Each sighting must feel like an event, not a routine. For routine is the death of reverence. Invisibility creates scarcity, and scarcity creates desire. When a ruler knows how to vanish, his enemies waste their strength fighting shadows. They imagine plots, conspiracies, ghosts, and in that confusion, they exhaust themselves. He wins without confrontation because he forces them to fight the air. The unseen strategist never needs to prove his existence. The mere suspicion of his hand is enough to alter behavior. To be feared without being present is the purest form of control. Men of haste will never understand the weaponry of waiting. They call it weakness because they mistake movement for progress. But the wise know that time punishes the reckless and rewards the patient. In waiting, one observes. In stillness, one gathers. In disappearance, one becomes untouchable. For while others fight for recognition, the wise secure reality itself. The art of vanishing is also the art of resurrection. To disappear is to reset the perception of others, to be reborn without explanation. Those who vanish voluntarily can return as prophecy fulfilled, not as memory repeated. The people will believe they have been visited by destiny, when in truth, they have met the same strategist under a new name. The ruler who learns to vanish learns to live many lives inside one. The world fears the invisible because it cannot negotiate with it. You cannot bribe what you cannot locate, flatter what you cannot see, or kill what you cannot touch. Thus, the invisible ruler is not merely powerful, he is untouchable. Every blow aimed at him lands on illusions. Every accusation dissolves into rumor. The wise man becomes a ghost not by dying, but by mastering the art of never being entirely alive in others' sight. There is beauty in that distance, a cold beauty, but enduring. For the ruler who belongs too much to the world will die with it. But the one who hovers between presence and absence becomes a law unto himself. He shapes the rhythm of events as a musician shapes sound through the mastery of silence. And in that silence, the world listens, wondering whether he has gone or whether he has simply become the air they breathe. So learn this truth. To vanish is not to flee, but to transcend. To withdraw from the visible world is to enter the higher domain of influence, the domain of timing, imagination, and unseen command. For time itself bows before the one who refuses to be hurried, the one who acts when others are exhausted, the one who disappears just before the blade strikes. Such men are never defeated, because they are never fully found. And so, the wise manipulate time not by racing against it, but by dissolving into its flow. They become its architects, its ghosts, its hidden kings. They appear only at the edges of great events, their presence felt like gravity, silent, constant, inevitable. When the world seeks them, it finds only echoes. When the world forgets them, it still moves according to their design. That is the true art of vanishing, to live not in the eyes of men, but in the structure of their fate. Every civilization that rose to power did so because someone understood when to vanish, not when to fight, not when to speak, not when to demand loyalty, but when to disappear from the noise long enough to see clearly. Visibility blinds even the ruler who commands the spotlight. The eyes of the people are flames. Their praise burns hotter than their hate. The wise man does not bask in that fire. He uses its reflection to illuminate his own path, then retreats before the heat consumes him. To be remembered is not enough. One must be remembered on his own terms. That is why those who master disappearance never fear obscurity. They understand that influence and visibility are opposite currencies. The more of one you have, the less of the other. To manipulate time is to choose invisibility at the moment others crave recognition. In the frenzy of competition, the wise slow their pulse, allowing the world to exhaust itself. They know that in every field, politics, war, or commerce, the one who controls timing controls reality. Men confuse effort with momentum and noise with power, but only silence carries the weight of inevitability. The ruler who understands this rhythm does not rush to win battles. He wins by outlasting desire itself. He learns that control is never maintained by force alone. Force must be disguised as patience, cruelty as foresight, mercy as calculation. Every gesture must serve a hidden clock. When he withholds, it is not out of kindness, but strategy. When he yields, it is not weakness, but redirection. He bends not because he must, but because bending hides the force gathering behind him. The visible conqueror seeks victory. The invisible one seeks permanence. Victory fades. Permanence does not. The art of vanishing begins with detachment from the applause of the crowd. The crowd is hungry for spectacle, but the ruler who feeds them becomes their entertainer, not their master. The more they see of him, the less they believe in him. The less they believe, the more they demand proof, and proof is the death of mystique. Therefore, he disappears, not out of arrogance, but preservation. In that distance, his power ripens. The absence of the ruler creates a vacuum, and in that vacuum reverence grows. Absence magnifies. Presence diminishes. This is the paradox of power. What men cannot possess, they mythologize. The invisible ruler becomes an idea, and ideas are more powerful than thrones. The body can be overthrown, the myth cannot. Every appearance he makes must feel deliberate, almost sacred, as if fate itself arranged his timing. Too much light reveals flaws, too much exposure invites rebellion, but the one who moves like a shadow remains both feared and admired. He becomes necessary, not by force, but by rhythm. Even betrayal can be controlled through timing. Betrayal is rarely born of hatred, it is born of boredom. Those who see too much of their master grow numb to his mystery. The wise prevent betrayal by disappearing before loyalty fades. He lets absence rekindle dependence. When he returns, it feels not like reappearance, but resurrection. The same men who might have plotted against him now welcome him as deliverer. What is resurrection, after all, but a perfectly timed return? Invisibility is also protection from moral fatigue. Every ruler must lie, manipulate, betray, and decide who must fall so others may rise. To live constantly in view is to let guilt accumulate under public scrutiny, but to vanish is to cleanse. It allows the mind to breathe, to reassess, to disguise necessity as destiny. For every ruthless act requires time to cool before revelation. Time is the only confessor the powerful can trust. The wise know that time erases outrage. What shocks today becomes doctrine tomorrow. Therefore, they let distance do their justifying. The impatient defend themselves. The wise let memory do it for them. They vanish while judgment burns hottest, and return when the crowd has forgotten why they were angry. This is not deceit, it is mastery of decay. Time corrodes all certainty, and the one who disappears survives the erosion. The manipulation of time is also the manipulation of narrative. Whoever controls when an event is remembered, controls how it is remembered. The wise ruler releases truth as one releases poison slowly, in controlled doses, to shape the memory of those who consume it. He knows that history is written not by the powerful, but by the patient. The strong conquer nations, the wise conquer perception, and perception, once conquered, outlasts every empire. There is a moment in every life, whether of man or state, when silence is the last defense. The ruler who has built well knows when to retreat from words, for words are traps. Once spoken, they can be weighed, twisted, and turned against their author. But silence cannot be betrayed. Silence remains unassailable. The invisible ruler speaks through outcomes, not declarations. His word is action, his language consequence. The world misunderstands stillness. It calls it apathy, passivity, or indecision. But stillness is not inaction, it is alignment. It is the ruler aligning his vision with inevitability, moving not against time but with it. Forcing time breeds rebellion. Flowing with it breeds control. He waits until the current of events tilts naturally in his favor. Then he steps forward, and the world calls it genius. Power must be cyclical to survive. The ruler who remains visible without pause becomes predictable. Predictability breeds resistance. But the one who disappears reclaims unpredictability. He becomes the axis around which others must adjust. His silence becomes a question everyone must answer. And questions, not answers, are what sustain authority. For when men stop questioning, they stop fearing. Every invisible ruler knows the value of exile. Exile, whether chosen or imposed, purifies ambition. It strips away illusion and tests loyalty. In exile, one observes the anatomy of betrayal and the vanity of power. The wise man uses that solitude as apprenticeship. When he returns, he is not the same man. He is the refined version of his former self, sharpened by distance. The world mistakes that return for fate, but it is merely calculation matured in silence. Those who wish to endure must learn to vanish not only from others, but from themselves. Pride, ego, vanity. These are the loudest enemies of invisibility. The ruler who cannot silence his own hunger for validation will eventually betray his strategy. The wise man learns to feed on restraint. He finds satisfaction not in recognition, but in knowing his design moves unseen through the veins of history. There is a strange peace in such detachment, a peace not born of morality, but of mastery. To be unseen is to be unburdened. The invisible ruler is free from the theater of justification. He governs without applause, directs without appearing to, and influences without ownership. This is not the coldness of a tyrant, but the serenity of one who has transcended visibility. For he knows that the only true permanence lies beyond the reach of sight. To vanish is to choose a higher form of control not over men, but over time itself. To wait until the season ripens, to strike when movement feels like destiny, to withdraw before rot sets in. These are the quiet maneuvers that shape eras. History may not remember the hand, but it will always bear the fingerprints. The wise do not crave credit, they crave continuity. So the art of vanishing is not retreat, it is rule through rhythm. It is to weave one's will into the very structure of time. The wise ruler does not wish to be eternal in memory, but in effect. He builds laws, systems, loyalties, and fears that outlive his name. When he disappears, his design continues to move invisible, automatic, alive. That is how one manipulates time, by ceasing to depend on it. To master invisibility is to become a phenomenon without form, a wind that shapes trees, a tide that shapes coasts, a silence that shapes history. Men will seek the source of such influence and find none. They will argue whether he ever truly existed or whether his ideas simply evolved on their own. In that confusion lies the highest victory to rule without appearing to rule. And when the world grows loud again, when the new generation of fools rush into light, believing they have discovered freedom, the wise will once more fade into the shadows. There, in that stillness between chaos and order, they will wait unhurried, unseen, undefeated. because those who learn to vanish never truly leave. They merely step beyond reach, beyond judgment, beyond time, and from that place they continue to govern the world. Look to the battlefield, not of swords but of institutions. There, the most visible generals often die first, those who raise banners high, who shout promises, who demand to be seen as saviors. Yet the true architects of victory remain faceless, their signatures hidden behind decrees, their names whispered only in sealed chambers. The wise ruler learns from this, to command the field without standing upon it. When he moves, he does so through others. A diplomat's handshake hides his decision. A minister's reform carries his intention. He allows others to own his ideas publicly so that they die defending them. In politics, delegation is not trust, it is camouflage. Think of the merchant who manipulates markets not by selling, but by waiting. He withholds his goods as demand grows desperate until scarcity makes him king. The foolish seller races to profit from the first buyers, while the patient one profits from the last. In the same way, the wise ruler withholds his presence. The more inaccessible he becomes, the more his worth multiplies. Power obeys the same law as gold. Its value increases with its rarity. Consider the empire that falls not from war but from rhythm. Rome expanded too fast, drunk on conquest, unable to pause between victories. Its rulers forgot that even power must breathe. When an empire never disappears from sight, it becomes predictable to its enemies and exhausting to itself. The wise ruler learns to contract deliberately, to make retreat a form of strength. He abandons what he cannot control and reinvests in what he can. Withdrawal is not defeat, it is pruning. Trees that never shed their branches collapse under their own growth. In the modern world, visibility is the new vulnerability. Leaders broadcast their thoughts daily, confusing transparency with strength. But the more a man explains, the more his motives can be mapped. The wise never reveal their mind in full sentences. They speak in fragments, in paradoxes, in gestures that require interpretation. Every word must contain more shadow than meaning. For once you can be understood completely, you can be destroyed completely. The art of survival is the art of partial revelation. Watch the hunter in the forest. He never chases. He observes wind, movement, silence. The animal that runs too quickly makes noise. The hunter who waits becomes invisible to time. So too must the strategist disappear within the environment he controls. When rivals grow restless, he mirrors their energy until they believe he is one of them. When suspicion rises, he joins the suspicion, never its target. The most effective camouflage is participation to vanish within the crowd without losing control over it. In the court of rulers, vanity kills faster than betrayal. The wise ruler studies the rhythm of flattery. He accepts praise like one tasting poison in measured drops. Every compliment reveals what the flatterer desires. Every gift exposes the giver's weakness. He allows flattery to gather around him, not to bask in it, but to map the ambitions of others. Vanity blinds the fool to danger. Discipline turns praise into intelligence. The art of vanishing also governs alliances. Alliances must be treated like fire, never too close to burn, never too far to die. The wise ruler vanishes just enough to keep his allies guessing. He allows them to doubt his loyalty, so they remain loyal out of fear. Predictable friendship invites manipulation. Uncertainty commands respect. In the dance of diplomacy, the one who controls distance controls devotion. Even mercy must be timed. The ruler who forgives too soon appears weak. The one who delays it too long appears cruel. Mercy must arrive when it feels unexpected yet inevitable. To master this balance is to turn compassion into theater, a calculated act of timing that binds the forgiven closer than punishment ever could. Invisibility is not always about absence. Sometimes it is about striking emotion before logic can intervene. There was once a ruler who survived every coup because he was never in the room. His enemies plotted against him constantly, but he was always elsewhere hunting, inspecting borders, visiting temples. By the time the conspirators moved, their messages reached ears that already knew. His spies carried his silence like a second skin. They did not speak in his name, they spoke as rumors. His absence became the alarm that every traitor feared. His name was invoked in meetings he never attended, his authority enforced in rooms he had never entered. Such is the architecture of unseen power. It multiplies through fear of what might be, not through proof of what is. The wise ruler also disappears in defeat. He accepts blame swiftly, then vanishes before resentment can take root. He allows others to clean the ruins of failure, to absorb the rage of the masses, while he retreats into obscurity. Time heals memory faster than it heals wounds. When he reappears, he does so as a voice of renewal, not the architect of collapse, but the answer to it. Men are quick to forget pain when they are offered a savior. The art of vanishing makes rebirth not a miracle, but a cycle. Observe nature again. The serpent sheds its skin, not its essence. So does the ruler who knows when to transform. He alters his form, his name, his rhetoric, but his will remains the same. The crowd calls it evolution, he calls it disguise. Those who cling to identity are prisoners of it, but those who vanish into reinvention become eternal. For the world changes, and only those who can disappear into change rule over it. Even love must be manipulated through absence. The lover who is always near becomes dull to the beloved, but the one who departs leaves a void that the heart itself defends. So it is with loyalty in power. The ruler who gives himself completely to the people becomes an object, not a force. The one who remains slightly out of reach becomes a vision half real, half legend. Love cannot be commanded, but distance can be engineered to create its illusion. There is a story of a strategist who never fought a battle he could not narrate. He would vanish from the front lines and reappear after the smoke cleared, shaping the story before others could. His absence made his presence larger. When men retold the victory, they inserted him where he had never stood. He understood that truth is not history's concern, perception is. Those who write the aftermath rule the past. To manipulate time, one must also manipulate succession. The ruler who fears death has already lost. The wise prepare successors not to replace them, but to preserve their rhythm. They teach others to imitate their silences, not their speeches. For legacies die in words, but live in methods. The ruler who vanishes well ensures his presence outlives his body. The empire continues not through lineage, but through style, a continuity of calculation. Even disappearance has degrees. There is the disappearance of the body, the disappearance of intention, and the disappearance of motive. The deepest mastery is to vanish in plain sight, to act openly while remaining misunderstood. This is the art of the paradoxical presence, to be seen constantly yet never grasped. The wise do not hide behind walls, they hide behind interpretations. When others think they have defined him, he shifts the frame. His opponents fight phantoms because he lives in perception, not position. Power is a mirror, and those who stare into it too long begin to see their own reflection as truth. The invisible ruler never falls into this trap. He looks away. He understands that mirrors lie, they show only what stands before them, not what moves behind. To vanish from one's own reflection is to see the full game. That is why the ruler must sometimes step out of the frame to watch how the world behaves when it believes he is gone. Only then does he know who obeys him and who obeys the illusion of him. In the end, the art of vanishing is not disappearance, but discipline, the discipline to wait, to observe, to master the spaces between events. It is the science of timing, the psychology of absence, the geometry of influence. To manipulate time is not to rush toward tomorrow, but to design it in silence. The ruler who grasps this becomes less a man and more a pattern. His actions are weather, his decisions tides. He does not pass through history, history passes through him. And when the final hour arrives, when power shifts, when nations tremble, when the stage grows dark, the wise will already be gone. Not dead, not defeated, but dissolved into the machinery of time itself. The world will speak his name, not as memory, but as inevitability. For the one who vanishes perfectly does not escape life. He becomes the architecture through which life continues. To manipulate time itself is to dissolve the boundary between cause and consequence. It is to move not as a reaction, but as the origin of motion. The wise ruler no longer waits for time to unfold. He folds it around his intention. Every choice becomes both anticipation and fulfillment. He stands outside of sequence, watching events rush toward him as if preordained. To control time is not to hasten it, but to align one's will with its hidden momentum. The fool demands results now. The master ensures that now arrives only when it serves his design. Time is the invisible battlefield where all strategies converge. It rewards no one, yet it can be commanded by those who understand its obedience to rhythm. The ruler who has learned its language does not chase opportunity, he engineers its appearance. He creates the illusion of luck, the inevitability of coincidence. When he moves, it seems that time itself has chosen his moment. To manipulate time is to dictate the very structure of possibility, to make delay itself a form of dominance. The art of vanishing is the bridge to this mastery, for only in disappearance does one escape time's tyranny. The visible man is bound to the clock, measured, judged, consumed by expectation. The invisible one exists beyond measurement. When he vanishes, he is no longer perceived as late or early. He becomes the point around which time rearranges itself. He no longer obeys moments, he creates them. In this state, movement is no longer linear. Presence is no longer temporal. The ruler becomes an axis around which events orbit. Those who manipulate time understand that control lies not in speed, but in sequence. To act too soon is to waste force. To act too late is to surrender it. Power grows not from accumulation, but from synchronization. The ruler who knows the pulse of history inserts himself into its rhythm with surgical precision. He makes each decision feel inevitable, not chosen. Thus, his influence becomes self-perpetuating. Time begins to echo his pattern. He is no longer the player of the game, but its law. In the highest form of mastery, the ruler ceases to think of time as external. It becomes a medium through which his will travels. His patience is not waiting, it is weaving. His silence is not emptiness, it is recalibration. Every pause is filled with unseen reconfiguration. The world interprets this as luck, foresight, or divine timing. But in truth, it is nothing more than attunement to the current beneath all events. To manipulate time is to listen to that current and bend it toward purpose without resistance. The manipulation of time is not about prediction, it is about positioning. The wise ruler does not attempt to foresee every future. He places himself where every future must pass. This is the quiet genius of temporal dominance. It makes every path lead back to the same center. To command time is to command inevitability. The ruler's will becomes the gravitational force that draws outcomes into alignment. Others act freely, yet their freedom fulfills his design. Such mastery requires erasure of impatience. Impatience is the mind's rebellion against rhythm. The impatient seek to impose force upon time, and in doing so, they reveal their ignorance of its texture. Time resists command from those who do not respect its depth. The wise ruler bends it not through demand, but through resonance. His plans are calibrated to seasons, not seconds, to cycles, not impulses. He understands that time punishes those who push it, yet yields to those who move in tune with its breath. To manipulate time is to manipulate perception of duration. The ruler stretches or compresses it according to necessity. A crisis may seem immediate, yet he expands it until panic dissolves. A minor success may feel eternal, yet he shortens its life before complacency forms. By dictating how long moments feel, he dictates how deeply they are remembered. Control over time's texture becomes control over emotion, memory, and meaning. To master perception of time is to master the emotional climate of entire societies. At this level, time ceases to be linear progression and becomes a field of leverage. Each decision is not an event, but a resonance, a wave sent into the continuum of consequence. The wise ruler sends these waves deliberately, aware that their reverberations may return years later. He plants echoes that will arrive as coincidence, omens, or prophecies. He understands that influence over time does not require omniscience, only consistency. The man who moves in harmony with his design bends the years toward his form. To manipulate time is to erase the distinction between beginning and ending. For the wise, every ending is a concealed renewal. They do not fear decay, because decay is simply the preparation of new order. The ruler who sees time as circular never grows desperate. He does not cling to today, for he has already placed his seeds in tomorrow. Even in retreat, he advances. Even in silence, he speaks. His disappearance is not an escape, it is a transition of seasons. Time itself fears the ruler who can vanish, for vanishing makes him untraceable, unbound by chronology. He slips between the frames of expectation. He is neither early nor late, neither present nor absent. He is the unseen constant in the flow of change. To manipulate time is to master transformation, to shift between forms without ever being caught in one. His enemies grow old, his rivals fade, but he remains not immortal, but unfixed. In the theater of history, most actors live by the hour. The wise ruler writes in centuries. His calculations are not measured in outcomes, but in alignments. He does not seek to win the present moment. He seeks to control the rhythm of future moments. He moves so slowly that motion disappears, so precisely that coincidence seems divine. Time bends around, such discipline as metal bends to heat. Ultimately, to manipulate time is to recognize its moral neutrality. Time does not favor the virtuous or the wicked. It serves only the prepared. The wise ruler does not waste it seeking fairness. He uses it as raw material. Time, like fire, devours those who worship it and empowers those who contain it. To contain it, one must exist both within and above it, to act as both participant and architect. This is the true art of vanishing, not to escape from time, but to dissolve into it until one becomes indistinguishable from its flow. The ruler ceases to exist as a momentary being and becomes the continuity itself, the pulse that never breaks, the silence that dictates movement, the unseen design through which all visible events unfold. He no longer lives inside time. Time lives inside him. Power is not sustained by action alone, but by the mastery of intervals. The wise ruler knows that the most decisive force in governance is not command, but the timing of command. It is better to strike one day too late than 1 hour too soon. Premature action wastes preparation. Delayed action wastes opportunity. Between these two dangers lies the delicate art of timing, the silent faculty that separates authority from accident. A ruler who cannot feel the pulse of time must eventually obey it, but one who learns to read its hesitations bends it to his will. In the theater of politics, appearance moves faster than truth. Men believe not what is real, but what arrives first. Therefore, the ruler must dictate the rhythm by which truth is revealed. If he cannot control events, he must control the interpretation of their arrival. He may slow revelation when weakness appears, or hasten it when advantage gleams. The people remember not the act itself, but the moment in which it appeared inevitable. It is not justice that sustains power, but timing that makes justice seem just. Every rival is enslaved by his own tempo. Some rush forward, hungry for results. Others linger, trapped in hesitation. The ruler observes both from stillness. He waits until impatience exposes their ambition, or until caution unmasks their fear. Then he moves between them, striking neither first nor last, but at the moment when both are blinded by expectation. To manipulate time is to force others to act by instinct while you act by calculation. He must never allow the public to measure his pace. To appear hurried is to admit dependency. To appear idle is to invite rebellion. He moves as the tide moves, with reason hidden beneath rhythm. When he delays, he must seem deliberate. When he hastens, he must seem compelled by destiny. For men will forgive slowness if it appears as foresight, and forgive cruelty if it appears as necessity. Time, to the wise, is not a river that carries all, but a resource that can be harvested. The seasons of loyalty, fear, and ambition each yield different crops. To rule is to sow in the proper hour and to harvest in the proper silence. The fool demands results from barren ground. The ruler waits until the field itself begs for his hand. To govern time is to govern men, for men are prisoners of it. They live within their impatience, their memories, their hopes. The ruler who transcends these illusions appears to them divine. He becomes the fixed star in their turning sky, the measure by which they count their own movement. This is not magic, it is mastery of rhythm. When such mastery is achieved, time itself becomes his servant. It shields his mistakes, amplifies his victories, and conceals his design. The ruler who commands time no longer fears loss, for he does not move with the hour moves with him. In the end, power is not the conquest of men, but the conquest of moments. Every ruler must one day confront the truth that armies can be defeated, laws can be broken, loyalty can rot, but timing, once mastered, cannot be taken. It is the final instrument of dominion, the invisible crown that endures when gold and banners have fallen. The wise do not chase glory. They position themselves where glory must eventually pass. They do not race the clock. They compel the clock to pause in reverence. The fool believes that power lies in visibility, that control is found in speech, that destiny is secured through noise, but noise fades and visibility decays. The wise choose silence, not as retreat, but as sovereignty, for in silence he listens to the rhythm beneath chaos, and in that rhythm he hears when to act, when to disappear, when to let time strike in his name. The ruler who understands this no longer fears uncertainty. He makes uncertainty his weapon, his disguise, his fortress. History never remembers the hand that truly shaped it. It remembers the explosion, not the spark. The wise ruler accepts this and smiles. To be forgotten is not failure when the world still moves according to your design. The invisible hand does not crave applause. It measures victory by continuity. Those who vanish at the right moment do not die. They are transmuted into the structure of fate itself. To manipulate time is to end the need for defense. It is to live above reaction, to see all outcomes as threads in one continuous tapestry. The ruler who moves with time does not resist its flow. He directs its current through patience. What appears as destiny to others is, to him, simple geometry, the alignment of silence, preparation, and precision. And so, when the crowd cries for leadership, the wise do not step forward. They allow time to summon them. When the people seek blame, they are nowhere to be found. When the age seeks meaning, their name emerges, carried by inevitability. That is the perfection of rule, to vanish so completely that your will becomes the nature of time itself. For those who command visibility rule for a season, but those who command time rule forever.